round two of this Sports Cafe Mumble Jumble segment. And I would like to introduce three more personalities of your very fine club to the stage. Can Conrad, Kelley, Mike Anderson and Pat Ryan come forward, please? Diesel's just reading the liner notes, but with a name like that, I don't think he's the kind of guy that takes a lot of attention of those sort of things. So can you please explain why someone living in the gentrified suburbs of Eastbourne has a nickname like Diesel?
God knows. I came up here, I was sucked into doing this actually. Willie said, you got to come up, and I was one of the three, but honestly I was sucked in. Other people turned it down. I wish they wouldn't have. So we're waiting for others to turn up and take my spot. Conrad can speak next.
And all it says in the preparation notes is that you will bounce stories with Conrad, so I'll just shut up. Go for it.
I guess for me, a little bit humbled by being on the stage with both these guys, because I don't feel that in terms of commitment to the club that I've done anything like what these two have. So Diesel, Patrick, was the treasurer here for over 20 years. Kept the club going through some very hard times when our membership wasn't that great. Some would say he has very, very short arms and very, very long pockets, so that made him ideal for the situation. So well done, Diesel. Mike here on my left, he's a life member of the club. I think you are too, Diesel, is that right? Yep. It doesn't say Diesel on the honours board though. Mike, look, I played with Mike through the 80s, but he had played through the 70s as well. He coached in the 80s. While he was playing, he was also the club captain here, so while the rest of us were off having a few beers at the now defunct Eastbourne Hotel, Mike would still be here cleaning out the changing rooms and doing all that sort of stuff. He's been president of the club, he's coached the senior side, and when I was chairman here in the sort of around about 2010, we seconded Mike back onto the committee because we just knew he was a guy that gave everything for Eastbourne. So look, I'm really humbled to be on the stage with these two guys. Also interesting, the two previous speakers, Don Griffin. Look, Don, you had a huge part in my career, both in out of rugby, but also on the rugby field, and I always really appreciated your input. Your daughter was married to one of my very, very best mates, and one of the stories you used to tell about growing up in your household was the Saturday mornings getting woken up early by Dad shouting at the bathroom mirror, practicing his team talks. And look, they were inspiring. I remember sitting in here for the first time ever being inspired by Don Griffin, and sort of you ran out of here prepared to walk over broken glass for the green and gold. So, Don, they worked. And Murray Gibbons. So Gibbo was my first ever senior captain, and so I think I was about 18 when I first played my first senior game for Eastbourne here, and I ran out. I remember someone got hurt, so I ran on and played centre for the second half against Petone. And I felt very proud about having done that. And Gibbo was the captain, and he came up to me afterwards after I'd bought a jug. There's more. And he said, "Well played, boy." And then he spat in my jug and said, "That's mine now, boy." Yeah. I don't think the well-being of the younger players was foremost in your mind, mate. But I did not. It happened at Hutt Old Boys Club Rooms. If Warren Williams was here, he would have witnessed it.
Mike Anderson, you've been involved with every aspect of this club. You have a long family history in this club. Can you take us through the family history of your association with Eastbourne?
We came over from the Wairarapa. I suppose we'd say we immigrated from Cardiff into Eastbourne in 1970. We were welcomed with open arms by everybody that we met here. Dad he'd been on the committee of the Cardigan Club. He'd played for Cardigan, played for Wairarapa Bush. He loved rugby. He brought all 7 kids up as rugby fans, even the girls. When we first got here, Dad was sort of trying to avoid coming into the rugby club. I remember him saying, "Nah, not me. I've done my time in rugby. It's up to you guys now." Within a year, he was club captain, coaching the senior teams. He'd done everything as far as what Eastbourne wanted from him. He lived and breathed Eastbourne rugby for about 12 years. I probably was the one that followed on from him rather than the rest of the family, but all my 4 brothers, or 3 brothers, myself, all played for the club. We started playing in 1970. I played too many games for Eastbourne. I coached a bit, more reluctantly. There wasn't too many people putting their hands up to be coaches when I got the job. It was a case of, oh shit, we got nobody else, Mike will do it. It was pretty similar on the committee. When I first joined the committee was very organised. You spoke when you were told to speak. The chairman basically told everybody what to say and what to agree to, and we just got on with it. More later in the years, I found I was doing just that to most of the committees that I was chairing. Seemed to be the way to go.
And one of the committees you were on was the 75th anniversary committee. How was that occasion different to this one?
Well, the weather's fine and warm. We had all the plans for the 75th. We spent a lot of time in the committee. Peter Smits-Kennedy, Brian Swift, Spencer Logan, myself and a few others. And on the big night over at the community centre, we had 370 people, guests and club members seated for a dinner. And it started hailing. And the hail came through the vents in the roof about 5 minutes before everybody was about due to walk in the door. The ladies were complaining about the mud outside because their shoes were getting stuck in it. It was a pretty awful night to start with. It turned out to be a great night. I think everybody that was at the 75th really enjoyed themselves. It was a pleasure to be involved with.
Diesel, I'm going to ask you a question about your administration. It's not an easy thing to administer rugby clubs and the various roles that you have to do. And I want you to give an answer that isn't so humble and share with the audience just some of the challenges involved with administering rugby.
Well, in those days I came in by default. I ran the bar for quite a few years, as well as being the treasurer for about 22 years. In those days, the cricket club ran the summer season, we ran the winter season. We paid the bills in the winter, they paid the bills in the summer. Not as flash as what we've got now, by no means. But in those days, we just had to do it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a rugby club. 75th Jubilee, I was on that committee as well. Good times, we had an awesome time. Totally different now, we're having it here. Last time was next door, far more space. This is going to be a bit crowded. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes tomorrow. One thing that is interesting for me is they brought the game forward tomorrow till 1:30. What that means is you start drinking at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So you've got to go an extra hour and a half. But we can do that, we can cope. One thing I'd like to do is have a shout out to the past life members that passed away this year, Malcolm Rudman and Peter Smits-Kennedy. We'd like you to stand up and raise a glass to both Malcolm and Peter. They were both life members of the Eastbourne Rugby Club.
One of the guys that wasn't a life member was very much in the forefront of Eastbourne rugby for a number of years, and that's John McFarlane. He passed away also recently. John came to Eastbourne in 1974 from Onslow. John and I were associated with coaching some of the schoolboy teams out here. I remember very fondly the times that John was involved. He had a word to say about everybody's game and everybody's position. His favourite position was in the forwards, in the front row, and if you were a front row forward, he talked to you more than he talked to anybody else. He always said he knew more about front row rugby than he knew about his marriage, but I'm not sure, Florence, would that be true?
like that remark that Eric Watson, the All Black coach, had. He said, the only reason you talk to forwards at half-time is to turn them around.
Look, Johnny Mack meant a lot to me as well. He supported our team all through the 1980s, and he was always a guy who had found something positive. If you'd lost 45-0, Johnny Mack would come up and tell you something about your game that was positive. But there was two stories about him that stick in my mind. Both involve people who had played rugby to a reasonable level. One was a junior All Black and one was an All Black. So the junior All Black was living in Upper Hutt in a residence that was provided for him by the government. 6 days a week, he was unable to leave his apartment. But on Saturdays, he was allowed to come and play football for Eastbourne. And Johnny Mack would faithfully drive up to Upper Hutt and sign a form and get our number 8 to be allowed to come and play for Eastbourne, and he was a magnificent footballer. I remember a game against Pornicky, and we were minus our number 8 in the first half. Something had happened. There must have been traffic between Upper Hutt and Kilburnie Park. Anyway, we looked around and Douglas wasn't there, and the Pornicky number 8 was running rampant. And we were down about 10-0 at half-time, and anyway, the first scrum happened, and the Pornicky number 8 picked the ball up off the back of the scrum and tried to run blind, and he got absolutely smashed. And he got up. Who did that? And Douglas said, I did. And he said, oh, okay. Fine. And the other story involving Johnny Mack was there was an All Black prop. I don't know whether he was a loose head or a tight head. Sorry, I don't understand. I played fullback. You're all the same to me, mate. So this guy was an All Black loose head or tight head. He was also the captain of the current Wellington team. So Wellington Lions, he was the captain of the Wellington team. And he had been brought down from the King Country by a club. This was pre-professional rugby. And he had been brought down from the King Country, and I don't know why he came to Wellington to play for a club called Wellington College Old Boys, but for some reason he chose to come to the King Country, from the King Country, to play for that club. But when he got there, he found he didn't actually like the guys. And he was working on a building site in town, and our hooker, a guy called Colton Shaw, got to know him. He said, look, come out and play for us. So this guy was an All Black and the captain of the Wellington Lions, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays, he would come out and train with Eastbourne in junior second. And the reason he would do that was because he quite liked the Eastbourne Hotel and the company of the guys on a Tuesday and a Thursday. So Johnny Mack, over the summer, arranged for Kevin Borovich, All Black, captain of the Wellington Lions, to come and play J2 for Eastbourne the following season. And it was pre-professional rugby. The cost of that was going to be 1 Kadima lounge suite. Now, Earl Curtin, who went on to be an All Black selector, was the current Wellington Lions coach. He said, Kevin, you can't do it. You cannot do that. So, unfortunately, we never got an All Black playing for us in the 1980s.
Players, coaches, administrators, 3 of the best of your club: Conrad, Kelley, Mike Anderson and Pat Ryan.